everybody. Welcome to part 2 of my why am I using a surrogate story. I'm so sorry to leave you hanging the last time. I know that was like super rude of me, but I'm here to hopefully finish it in this video. So let's see, where did I leave off? I left off that they were testing me, they were taking blood cultures for me. I think that's where I left off. And I was like all fever induced and kind of like foggy, and I was asking them like, are they like, am I septic? Like, are they thinking that I'm septic? And she was like, no, of course not, that'd be crazy. And I remembered later that I wanted to include this. Another little key point is, and it might be kind of like a half spoiler alert, but during all the ultrasounds that I was having when I was like complaining about the bleeding, and they were like, oh, there's a little spot and like it's probably just a clot or whatever, I was asking them like, could they have left placenta inside of me? Do you think that that's what happened? Because at the time, or shortly before, like Kim Kardashian, who had, it was like her second baby, I think, and ended up having like a placental accreta, which is where the placenta like embeds itself in the wall of the uterus, that she got very sick, and that's why she has subsequently used surrogates. That's what happened to her. They fortunately caught the accreta before it like they didn't leave it in, or like, you know, she didn't have a ruptured uterus, I heard. Maybe she did, but they caught it anyway. They caught it before she got like sick or whatever. Of course my lawn man is walking in the backyard. He's probably thinks I'm crazy. Oh well, I don't care. So anyway, at the time that I had heard of that, where in my life I had never heard of that before, and I'm like I'm a nurse, and it still never like came up. It's like a very rare thing. And I'm like asking her, like, asking the doctor, not the ultrasound tech, like, do you think like there could be a piece of placenta in there, or maybe they left something inside of me? Like, I was just thinking, like, at that point, what could it be? And she was like, that is so rare, that never happens. Our doctors are so good, like, don't even entertain that idea. And I'm like, whatever you say, doc. So anyway, fast forward, I'm at the hospital. I'm fevering, having an awful night. They have me, oh my gosh, naked with cool cloths while I am physically shaking and just begging. Like, they would leave the room and I would go sneak and like turn the heat on because I was just miserable. Couldn't sleep. I had nothing but a sheet, and they only let me put it on my toes. And it was just awful. You know, it was just terrible. Hospitals are cold as it is, and they cranked my airway down. I get why. I mean, they didn't want me to melt my brain and my organs and all those things. And they couldn't control my fever. So I'm glad that they did, but in my fever-induced panic and just sheer freezingness, I was like, please just kill me. Like, I can't do this. Like, I was just miserable. All the feelings I felt that morning I woke up with that fever is what I felt all night long, and there's people coming in poking me, and I mean, it was just wild. It was super wild. And of course I had nobody. My husband wasn't there because he was at home with the baby, because I told him to be at home with the baby. And I didn't like call a visitor. Like, I couldn't think. So anyway, so we get through the night. I'll kind of I could go on and on about how miserable I was all night, but I think you get it. Morning comes, and the doctor, Dr. K, the one who had been following me, not the one that delivered my son, the one who'd been following me since everything, all my symptoms started, came in, and she said, how are you doing? I said, terrible. I mean, the night was terrible. By that time, I think they had gotten me more under control, but like, I was no sleep, like just bleh, And she's like, okay, so I want to do a UAE, which basically means it's a uterine artery embolization, which means they kind of go in right, there, like where your uterus is, kind of near your hip, and they like feed a thing in, and they block, I don't know if they use like a kind of foam or whatever, they block the arteries that lead to the uterus, and it dissolves. I think they put the dissolvable one in me. It doesn't really matter now, but I just want to be accurate. And basically it means that it hinders the blood flow that is getting to your uterus, in case while they are in there, it I won't bleed out more than I need to. And the scary part about that, I wasn't really scared about, by the time I got to the hospital, I felt confident that like this was going to be taken care of, and I was just going to, I'm in the best place I could be to be sick, a hospital, And so I was no longer like scared for what was happening to me. And she like, I knew the solution was going to be a D&C because she was like so confident, like that's all we're going to need to do. And I'm like, cool. And so, but they want to do the uterine artery embolization. And I'm like, but she asked me, she was like, how do you really want to have more kids? And I was like, yeah, we do have more kids. We have 2 embryos. Like those are our kids. And she was like, because sometimes the UAE can, because it blocks blood flow, it can also make pregnancies unviable. You know, it's a risk. You would have to, we'll put in the dissolvable kind, and you'll have to like wait, or you can have that removed later. You know, it's just, there's a risk. And I'm like, well, yeah, don't rule out the whole baby thing, because I definitely want to have more. Like we have more already. You know, that's why we're here. And so, you know, I like let her know how important that was, and she was like, okay. I remember my procedure was supposed to be at like 9 a.m. and it's like 8:50 now, and she's like, you know, let's get you over to, because I was at a women's hospital, like I mentioned, let's get you over to the regular hospital, like I said, that's in the same parking lot, but they still had to take me via ambulance because that's like, you know, just to be safe. And let's do that procedure. I'll feel so much better about it if we do that. And they'll put you under like a light sedation. We'll take you right back here and we'll go ahead and do the D&C. Better safe than sorry. And I'm like, fine. So, and I'm always the kind of person that thinks like that, you know, like I know that's a risk, but it's probably nothing can happen to me. You know, it's not gonna happen to me. Like I'm still kind of that way with certain things, but with my kids, I think everything's gonna happen. I'm like, no, you know, mommy will protect you from that. But with me, I'm like, it's fine. I'll be fine. I think that's the nurse in me, honestly, because like, you know, we don't go to the doctor unless our bone shows or something. But anyway, so that was my thinking was like, let's just get this over with. Let's do the D&C. Another thing is we're getting close to Halloween. Halloween's my favorite thing. And I want this done so I can go trick-or-treating. Whatever this is going to be, I want to be healed. I don't want to be bleeding anymore. I got a cute costume picked out. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this. So I think we were like, I don't remember. We were close because I was like letting people know how important that was to me, you know, priorities. And so the UAE went fine. They gave me like some goofy medicine. I think it was like Valium or Versed, something like that. And I remember it, but I don't remember pain. And I can remember saying at that point, like, I'm just done with pain. Like, whatever you need to do, just like put me out if you want, like whatever. Anyway, so now what I remember, because I think it was Valium, because I'm like in the pre-op now, where they like prep you in a room with like a curtain that goes all the way around, almost like an ER triage room, like just a small whatever. And it's like me and my husband, and there's people coming in and out, like the nurses or whatever, trying to like have me sign consents and like, you know, get me ready. And the doctor came in, the one who was doing the D&C. It was Dr. K and like one other doctor. I cannot remember her name, but I guess I wouldn't tell you anyway. Doesn't matter. Another doctor who works at the practice. I think it was actually the one who she said originally was on call and was like really good at D&Cs. She was going to be in there. So she comes in and they're like, how'd the UAE go? And I was like, it went fine, you know. She's like, are you ready? And I'm like, oh, yeah, because they were going to put me out for this. So she was like, you know, it's a 20-minute procedure on my end, and then they wake up and you're, you know, then we'll just get you home tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, you know, that sounds good. And she said, we just need to type and cross you. And then you can, you know, then I'll go in and start getting clean and ready. And I'm like, okay, type and cross is when they take blood from you to figure out your blood type, get a couple of units of blood ready of that blood type, just in case. Common practice for pretty much every procedure. However, from being a medical professional, I know that it oftentimes doesn't happen. They'll have my blood type on file, but they don't really do anything about it. Like the blood bank is close enough where they're like, it's probably not going to be an emergency. Also, it's a D&C. Like, they're not cutting me. They're going up through the happy place, and that way there is no cutting. So I think they were just thinking like, it's going to be fine. So I am loopy at this point because of the Valium, but I know enough to know that that's an important step, because they did have to give me Tylenol the night before. I have been on Lovenox, those shots, for weeks now, months. And Dr. K just kept saying how important me not bleeding is. And I just had a procedure to prevent it. Like, I just knew it was important, and I knew. So, and they weren't doing it. They kept like coming in and like saying something else to me, and then they would leave, but nobody was drawing my blood and nobody was type and crossing me. And I remember just being the squeaky wheel, and I was like, you guys gonna type and cross me? Like, you haven't typed and crossed me yet. Like, no one's done it. My blood type is not on my wristband. Like, I just remember like kind of being annoying, and like they were annoyed with me. And they're like, it's gonna be another 30 minutes. The doctor's already scrubbed up. And I'm like, well, then you should have done it when she told you to. Like, I've been asking, you know, I was just like fed up with everything at that point. And so they reluctantly do it. And then they wheel me off. And here's the part where I have to kind of tell it to you from not my perspective, because I am gonzo. I was obviously under anesthesia. So my husband is waiting in the waiting room. They tell him, you know, 20-minute procedure on the doctor's part. Then it's just me waking up, and then they'll, you know, get me to a room and get my catheter out, whatever. So he says an hour goes by, and Dr. K comes out and is like, you know, we're having a really hard time getting her to stop bleeding. I need you to sign the consent to do a total hysterectomy, because they couldn't get me to stop bleeding. And he's like, okay, you know, like, that sounds important. Like, I get it. You know, they explained to him like the risks or whatever. I designated him as my, you know, power of attorney or whatever. And so they, you know, they explained to him what that meant, I guess. And he did the right thing and signed it. So another hour goes by, and then another hour goes by, and they call him on, like, somebody from the front desk or like in the waiting area calls him over and is like, the doctor's in the in the OR on the phone, and she needs you to take the call. And he's like, okay, you know. He's thinking like the hysterectomy took 2 hours, like, you know, it's just, they're probably just telling me that she's okay. So she gets on the phone with him, and he's like, you know, what's going on? And she says, so your wife is in septic shock, and her blood gases are awful. She ended up going into what's called DIC, which is, you know, I'm horribly under explaining this, but your blood like turns to water and no longer clots. So I'm in septic shock, and blood is not staying in my body, and they can't get it to stop. So they're trying everything. And she said, can you call her family and let them know, if, you know, and just so that people are whatever, or something like that. Like, can you, you know, call her family, and we're going to try to transfer her to the ICU. She's still intubated. And is she religious? Because we want, you know, we need somebody. That's what they do. Like, if it doesn't look good, they'll call like the clergy to come and like pray over you or whatever. And he was like, wait a minute, what? Like, what are you telling me right now? And she said, like, he said that she kept trying to just not be straight with him. And he was like, he doesn't like that. So he was like, just what's going on? Like, what do I do? And they're like, she's most likely not going to wake up from this. Her blood gases are so terrible that her body, if she does recover, she may not function like she did. Like, they're just being honest with him finally. And they transfused me something like, I don't remember how many units. Like, it was a crazy amount of units of blood. And I still was like not, you know, I was still losing more than I was gaining, or more than they were giving me. And I was fully septic. By then they had gotten the results back from my blood cultures, and I was sick with E. coli. My whole body, my uterus was sick, and it was pumping the bad blood all the way throughout my body, the infection all the way throughout my body. And so I am totally septic, and now I'm not clotting. So like, those things on their own would kill somebody. I have both. And they tell my husband this, and they're like, you know, we're going to try to transfer her to the ICU, because I'm at the women's hospital now. I've got to get to the ICU, which is at the regular hospital. And an ambulance ride with somebody like that is dangerous. So they've got me intubated, and they get me over to the hospital. And I'm going to kind of skip like the recovery process and make that its own video, because I know a lot of people are probably just interested in like the backstory of why we have to use the surrogate. So, and I only, you know, I'm getting 15 minutes in. So to recap, I lost my fertility. They had to do a total radical hysterectomy. I was septic because they had left a piece of placenta inside of me. The doctor likes to say it's an accreta. Accretas usually you are seen, especially with the amount of ultrasounds I had from this baby because it was an IVF baby, those are generally seen along in the pregnancy at some point. Like usually it's noticed, and then when you deliver the baby, especially if it's via C-section, a lot of times they'll do a hysterectomy then, because it's really hard to like pull the placenta out without doing what happened to me, full bleeding. And I went, so basically she said what happened was they went in to do the D&C and scrape. And when they scraped, blood came out. And so they did what's called a curettage, I think it is, where they almost take like a balloon inside of your uterus and inflate it, thinking that like it'll put pressure on whatever area is bleeding. And when she did that, it just kept going. And she thought, oh no, I went through the uterus. I didn't go, I'm not inside anymore. And it turns out she was, and my uterus just totally fell apart. I have photos of it. I will spare you guys them. But it totally it was so infected and so sick that it just disintegrated. And at that point, when that happened, I totally, I just totally like lost a ton of blood. They had to go in through my C-section scar and another area and just get, save me at that point. They hit my stomach when they did that. They also hit a nerve that still to this day feels like somebody's burning me with a hot poker. But they saved my life. I mean, I had a lot of anger, like, well, you wouldn't have had to save my life if we wouldn't have got this far, whatever. I don't like to think like that. They saved me. And in the process, in combined with the fever, but a lot of the medications they had to give me during the long recovery kind of killed other organs, one of which being my kidneys. I have like pernicious anemia. I have anemia, severe anemia now. All of these things are so tolerable in the grand scheme of things though. And luckily we do have this option of somebody else potentially carrying the children that I cannot have. I had a lot of guilt and a lot of anger for a really long time, and it took me, oh my gosh, I mean, it's only been, like, my son is 22 months old or whatever. It's only been that long because it was 5 weeks after, so it's been about, 20 months, and I mean, it's taken almost every bit of that to get over this. My poor husband has, like, PTSD and, like, treats me like I'm glass, and a lot of people around me are very like delicate and like we have to, okay, and which I get, everybody handles things differently. It's just being the person who is on the receiving end of a lot of it. When I'm trying to get over it and be normal again, it's hard. So I will do a video if you guys want. Let me know about the recovery and like everything that had to happen from then. I will give you a shortened version. I ended up going to the ICU, was in the hospital for a while, then had to have daily blood infusions, go to a clinic. But it was months and months and months and months and months and months of recovery. Very slow road, a lot of relearning, a lot of just a new normal. But oh my God, a blessed, like, literally thank God normal. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, just, I can go into more details about the recovery in another video. And I can also go into like more details about like what my life is like now, like what my new normal is like, that it wasn't like before. Another video I would like to talk about is the legal side of things afterwards, because this was medical negligence, not malpractice, negligence. And just like what happened with that. So if you guys would like to hear both of those, please let me know below. I will be reading your comments. Thank you again for leaving comments and being so sweet and supportive. I feel like it's a village going through this with me, like it's a whole family, and you have no idea how much I need it, because in my real life, I don't have anybody, except my kids and my husband. So it's really, I feel like I have friends, and I really appreciate that, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this. I will talk to you again soon. Bye.